Hey guys, it's me Parker. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to review and overview the Tattoo Tarot. So maybe you've been looking at this deck, you're thinking about buying it, you're not sure if you want to, or you're just getting an interest in tarot in general. Maybe you're interested in just the artwork, or you want to watch this for fun. So we're going to go through the deck, all the minor major arcana from front to back as they're listed in the book. We'll go over the box. I'll give you my review on this deck, and we'll talk about the quality and all of that. So starting out, when you get the deck, it comes in this box. So it's got a metallic sheen on the title. It's really nice. It's got artwork, tattoo themed artwork on the inside and outside on the box. It does have a gem on the top and bottom. If you're a Gemini, you work with Gemini energy or have an affinity for it, I would recommend this deck. It does have quite a bit of gem symbology in here. The box itself is really sturdy. I have taken this on an overnight trip many times, and I just put the cards in, chuck it in my travel bag. It's really well built. So there's the box that it comes in. The book itself is really straightforward. So when you open it, there's a brief overview of the history of tarot, the history of tattoos, how are they kind of drawing or likening the two together is through symbology. So a brief overview. Then they go into how to conduct a reading, how to draw and interpret the cards. They do offer 3 spreads for this book. They have the heart, the blooming flower, and third eye insight. I haven't used these spreads. I can't comment on the quality of them, but they look nice. I don't use spreads myself, so. Then they go into minor arcana, how the suits work, how the numbers work, and numerology, so what they're representing, ace through 10 in the minor arcana. They go into the court cards. So this deck does have a somewhat specific designation for the court cards. The pages are knaves. They do specify it's intended to represent young women specifically. And then the knights or cavaliers are young men under 35. They do specify that. However, when you get into the meanings in the booklet, they do discuss knights as being like sometimes just events and stuff, so it's a little open to interpretation. So I'm not going to be referring back to the book after this point. This is a really great deck in terms of for the meanings of the cards. They don't have many meanings in here that are specific to just this deck. Sometimes when you order a deck, they have very specific meanings for the cards that are intrinsic just to that deck or that artist's interpretation. This deck is a very stereotypical, standard tarot meanings for the most part. If you have a general grip on what the minor and major card or minor and major arcana meanings are, you could pick up this deck and just start reading it or reading the cards. I do always recommend reading the book, but if you were to get this and just start reading with it and not read the book, you would be just fine. There isn't very many cards that have like a special meaning in this deck. So it's very standard. Now, would I recommend this deck? Overall, absolutely. I love working with this deck. I was gifted this deck by my brother, shout out to him, about at least 5 or 6 years ago. So I've been working with this deck for a long time. I would absolutely go out and purchase this deck again if I had to, if something happened to this deck. I love working with it. Would I recommend it for beginners? Yes and no. So the meanings, like I said, are very stereotypical, standard tarot meanings. The deck itself is quite large. It is on the larger end compared to, we'll hold it up to like the Rider-Waite here if I kind of center them both. It's one of my taller decks. It's a little bit wider. The cards are very thick. For that reason, if you're not very good at shuffling cards or you're not experienced yet at shuffling cards, this is by far my hardest deck to shuffle. That doesn't matter to me. It's just a little awkward sometimes, especially when I'm filming on camera and people are watching me shuffle these cards. It's worth it though, and because the cards are so thick, They hold up really well. All my cards get really beat up. So these cards do have, some of them have slight tears or perforation, but the finish on them is really nice. They're very, very vibrant, and like I've said, for a deck that I've been using for so long, they've really held up over time because I work my decks over pretty severely. So the quality is really, really good. The art and finish is fantastic. They are thick. They're just a little harder to shuffle. So if you're not very good at shuffling cards, you haven't played with cards much, I don't know if I would recommend it for your first deck. But if you want to jump in and just get going and learn how to do it, don't let that stop you by any means, because I would highly recommend this deck. So we're going to start going through the minor arcana as it appears in the book. I'm not going to overview the meanings of the cards unless, like I said, it's a meaning specific to this deck or a meaning specific to me having gotten to know this deck for years. What do I mean by that? So, like I said, when it comes to the deck itself, sometimes artists have a very specific meaning for the depiction of the messages in the cards. After having worked with decks for a while, sometimes when certain cards come out, you'll get a feel for that's my this card or that's my that card. When it comes out, it kind of means something specific to you. So having worked with this deck for a while, when there are cards that show in the Tattoo Tarot, sometimes it means something specifically to me after having gotten to know the deck. So I'll be pointing out those meanings as I go through and talk about the symbology, but we're not going to go through the card meanings. I will have a separate series for that, or else we will be here for 4 hours. Okay, so starting off with the Ace of Cups. Gorgeous Ace of Cups. It's full. There's actually something in that cup. There isn't always something in the Ace of Cups. In this deck, there is. It's juicy, it's full. There's dove and sun symbology. Two of Cups. They do highlight hearts or love relationships on the card itself. In the book, I believe they're fairly open-ended about it not being specific to romantic relationships, but using that symbology, you could certainly regard that if it comes out in a reading for you. Pretty standard Three of Cups. 4 and 5 of Cups depict eyes, crying, cards of loss. In the 5 of Cups, the eye is crying into a cup. So you could, if they come out together in a reading, draw that maybe that Ace of Cups is full of tears. That's come through for me in readings before. The 6 of Cups, we do have a heart in the center cup there with a cross in it, which can denote religious upbringing specifically. That's inferred. The dreamy, cloudy, and lunar 7 of Cups. The cups in the Tattoo Tarot tend to have doubling ups depicted in them, so 4 to 8 cups, 5 to 10 cups. In this 8 of Cups and the walking away energy that we see with the 8 of Cups, there's 4 separated cups, which can speak of lost opportunities. They're separated, 2 hearts separated, but I don't always take it to mean that. I'm just pointing that out. Star symbology on the 9 of Cups. 10 of Cups, 2 5s doubled up to a 10 with a peace symbol. A very young, boyish Page or Knave of Cups, heralding a feather, a messenger specifically. The Knight of Cups, I do like this Knight of Cups quite a bit when it comes out. This one has a compass on its shoulder, and it's quite a whimsical, dreamy Knight of Cups. He's kind of staring off into the distance. That's a bird, so communication, the song of his heart. Sometimes that message comes out with this one, but it is a very dreamy night. The Queen of Cups has her back turned. Sometimes in reading, she's looking towards a person or an energy, not necessarily, but I do quite often get that she's protecting her heart or protecting her cup. Very beautifully adorned. We have an emotional King of Cups here with a tear of happiness or sadness. wing and a crown tattoo. And then moving on to the Ace of Swords. Standard Ace of Swords, we do have rose symbology and a crown symbology. Roses feature quite heavily, especially in the sword suit in this deck. Again, it is tattoo themed. Very standard Two of Swords. The Three of Swords in this deck. So I have had this come through to indicate like networks, like social networks with the spider totem there and the spider web. However, this when the Three of Swords comes out for me in Tattoo Tarot, and I'm just sharing my experience or understandings of these decks. If you get this deck and you interpret things a different way, by all means, I'm just offering what I have come to know through my experience with these decks and how I quite often see these cards as they come out, but don't take my word as the final word on the meanings. It's just sometimes when they come out, that's what it means to me. So quite often when the Three of Swords comes out from the Tattoo Tarot, for me, it feels dusty. It looks old to me with those cobwebs. So it quite often to me indicates old pain. Quite standard 4 and 5 of Swords symbology. The 6 and 7 of Swords in this deck is really interesting because they have the 5 and 6 of Swords kind of encased in the Sword of Truth. What do I mean by that? So if we have an Ace of Swords, a Sword of Truth leading, and then a 6 of Swords coming out of it, sometimes I do get like a 6 of Swords situation where we're moving on from something, led by or guided by an Ace of Swords, a truth of some kind. There's a 6 of Swords meaning within that 7 of Swords, led by that Sword of Truth. There's that bound 8 and 9 of Swords energy. The 10 of Swords dropping down to the Sword of Truth. A cycle reset there. The Swords court cards, I always get a lot of mental activity off these ones in particular. Yes, I know that's what they represent, but I always get that really strongly with this deck, especially with the Knight and the King. More so the King, but there's a lot of mental activity with the air depicted in these court cards for the sword suit. There's a tattoo of a snake on his hand there. There's also a tattoo of an eye. Very focused Page of Swords energy when this one comes out for me. Very focused Knight of Swords as well. In the deck book, they refer to their depiction of the Queen of Swords with that snake tattoo as being somewhat cruel and unscrupulous, calculating even. I don't always get that myself when I use this deck. Sometimes, yes, she looks angry, but sometimes I do get a sort of a back off or don't mess with me, ready to cut with that sword energy. Not necessarily cruel, but more so defensive. I don't always get that cruelty off this queen. And then there's a lot of mental activity I always get coming off this king when it comes out in the tattoo. So wands next. The wand suit in the Tattoo Tarot is extremely phallic. Like, look at that wand. What does that look like to you? Not trying to be too 18A here, 18 plus or what have you, but it is very indicative of sexuality, lust, desire, passion. It doesn't have to mean that. I'm just pointing it out because it is a very phallic deck for that. We have 2 and 3 of wands. And the wands in this deck are presented with crossing wands, and they build as they progress and become more and more intertwined with each other. There's a Four of Swords, gem symbology. 5 and 6 of Swords with the victory laurel on the 6 of Wands with the victory laurel there. The 7 and 8 of Wands are very interesting in this deck. The symbology behind it. Sometimes when I look at this one, I see like a dream catcher. It's just very weavy. And with this one, we have the arrows indicating the directions and movement of the wand cycle, with the 8 of Wands being sometimes travel or just movement of energy. Is kind of omnidirectional. And then the 9 and 10 of Swords becoming more and more intertwined within each other. The arrow from the 9 of Wands, that final push energy that we associate with the 9 of Wands, becoming hardened. Not much movement left in that 10 of Wands. It's very kind of rigid. We have a Page of Wands, not as boyish in the Wands court cards. This looks more like a teen, right? There's a letter on his or her hand there signifying messengers, which Page of Wands is a messenger, but specifically like that is a message in this deck. This Knight of Wands progressing kind of to a young man, so not as boyish as we saw in the cup cycle. This more of a young man looking knight. I call this my intuitive Knight of Wands. This knight has a ship on him, which coupled with other traveling cards, sometimes I do take that to mean travel, but very centered with that kind of burning fire there, and the third eye is present. An intuitive Knight of Wands is how I always see this when it comes out. The Queen and King of Wands is portrayed as particularly compassionate leaders in this deck, so sympathetic. She is holding that staff there. She has got a heart tattooed on her. She's got heavy makeup on, quite gorgeous, desirable, attractive, of course, Queen of Wands. The King of Wands has a slight smile. He's approachable in this deck. There's a gem tattooed on his hand there. And I don't take the court cards to mean man or woman. It's just masculine, feminine energy. I mean, of course it can, but I'm just saying he or she because it's kings and queens. With the gem on their hand there, sometimes I get that they're a really great person, like all around, or they're a great catch. They're a gem of a human. And then sometimes I do get drawn to the blue eyes on the King of the Wands there. Moving on to the Ace of Pentacles, or coins as they call it in this deck. I will point out something interesting about the Tattoo Tarot is that they do kind of intertwine the messages of the coins with time, which is interesting to me because the minor arcana of pentacles or coins is tangible, right? Like money, for example. Time, ticks. Time can be measured as well. So they do correlate the coins with time in a lot of these cards, as well as masonry. So we have a peacock image there as the Ace of Coins. 2 and 3 of coins. There's some lunar energy going on in this card, balancing energy, the scales there. More masonry, hard work, right? Physical, tangible effort. 4 and 5 of Pentacles. I believe those are runes. I couldn't tell you for sure or what they mean. If you're well versed in that, my apologies, but it's just kind of everything in there. I would be curious if those are runes. If anyone knows what they mean, drop it down in the comments below. 5 of Pentacles there. This 6 of Pentacles, I call it juicy. It's a juicy 6 of Pentacles. Look at it. Like, it's very gifty, kind of lit up. I really like the artwork on this one because in that card, it's impossible to tell which one is giving and which one's receiving. I feel like it really encapsulates the reciprocity of the 6 of Pentacles. 7 of Pentacles in this card, specifically alludes to time, divine timing, taking a step back and waiting. Time is indicated directly in this card, as well as movement, forward and motion, investment, right? But time is indicated here. The Eight of Pentacles, ideas, hard work, more masonry imagery. 9 and 10 of Pentacles, more doubling up energy as we reach the end of the Pentacles cycle. A very boyish Page of Pentacles. We see progressing to like a teen here. A teen going into young adulthood. Very boyish, that progression there, holding a gem. The Queen of Pentacles, I do get drawn to the shadows on the faces of the court cards, particularly the Queen of Pentacles and the Page of Cups. Sometimes I do see her as very pale, and her lips look almost like bloodthirsty to me, like fangy almost. But of course she is a Queen of Pentacles. Sometimes I do get intuitive energy off of her crown there, but she's very beautifully adorned. Softer, right? We don't see the heavy blue makeup that we saw with the Queen of Wands. She's a little softer. And then I do quite get like intention off of this king, very intent. King of Pentacles there. So moving on to my major arcana, I am going to be going over sign designations. So the astrological sign placements that are associated with any major arcana signs that do have a sign designation. So if it represents Aries, I will mention it's Aries. Now, I will be talking about that in my Major Arcana series, but the reason that I want to mention it in this series as well, I'll be doing other overviews of decks, is sometimes the decks will have very specific sign designations for, like, a Queen of Wands might have, like, specifically a Leo in that card, right? So just for that reason, I am going to be specific with the Major Arcana about sign designations, as well as the majors if they come through. We didn't have that in the Minor Arcana here. So the Fool, the first of the major cycle, major for Aries, that is a pondering Fool, not necessarily, but sometimes I do get that Fool is just pondering. The Magician, mercurial energy, ruling signs that are ruled by Mercury. So Virgo, Gemini placements. In the book, they refer to the Magician as the juggler or the trickster. The High Priestess, Piscean designation. The Lunar Goddess. I do really love that card there. It's quite beautiful. The Emperor and the Empress in this deck are designed as to look at each other. Sometimes they do come out like that together. They can be looking at each other. The Empress, major for Libra, she's lit up. Quite often when the Empress comes out from the tattoo, for me, I get that something has got her attention. And she's looking at it. She's lit up like, oh, what's that? What's over there? Or she's looking at something. The Emperor, very solid, not stern, sometimes emperors can come off quite stern in decks. It's a very neutral emperor. The Hierophant in this deck is very large and looking down at their followers. They're praying sort of to him, and he looks quite compassionate, like he looks like he cares about the plight of his followers there. The Lovers, intertwined with a cherub. There's a heart tattoo with the cherub's Cupid's arrow there, and then a rose tattoo on her neck in an embrace. The Chariot, also very lit up. The black and white horses that we associate with chariots, which to me, Cancer designation. Oh, sorry. I forgot to mention Taurus, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, sorry. The Chariot, Cancer. Black and white horses, very standard. To me, that's very Cancerian, with the duality of their kind of crab shell that they retreat into sometimes, but I could just rant about that. Very lit up as well. Absolutely beautiful Libran Justice energy with the scales and Sword of Truth. Very regal. The Hermit, major for Virgo. Sometimes with major arcana cards, the Hermit is not actively looking in their lantern. To me, sometimes when that comes out in tarot, that can represent someone who is actively in a hermit process, a state of soul seeking, or not. In this deck, it is an active hermit, actively looking for the star. The star is shining extremely bright in that lantern there. The Wheel of Fortune with snake symbology. That's Jupiter energy, which rules Sagittarius. It doesn't have a specific sign designation, but I do, if it comes out with a lot of other Sagittarius cards, sometimes I'll take it as a sign, but Jupiter, expansive energy. Strength, Leo, standard symbology there. They are kind of reaching down into the lion's mouth there. The Hangman, Piscean designation, very lit up as well. Death, Scorpio. Those are the lovers, I believe. In that card, this is my favorite card in the Tattoo Tarot. It's the Temperance, sign designation for Sagittarius. It's just very beautiful imagery. Lovely. The Devil, designation for Capricorn. In the book, they do lead off with and kind of focus quite a bit on the divinity of the Devil card in terms of fate, the occult, magic. And yes, that is very standard of a devil meaning, but they do like to focus not necessarily in the shadow elements of the devil. They kind of lead off with like the magical, divine aspect of the devil. The Tower, Scorpionic energy, a fall from grace. They do focus on, karma from ill-gotten riches, that sort of vibe. Another one of my favorites, the Star, Aquarius energy, a very beautiful star there. The Moon, Cancer, but I do also take it as Piscean energy. In this deck, it speaks out to me even more so in this deck than most, but I do get that these are a pair here, and this one's crying out to the moon, and then this one is like comforting that female dog there, or wolf, what have you, like a comforting masculine energy on this one. The Sun, Leo designation, neutral sun there. It's kind of got a slight smirk or smile to it. Judgment. This person is kind of being singled out here. Doesn't have to mean that. You can take it as the standard meaning, but sometimes that does jump out to me as karma or aid. And the last major arcana, the World, fixed energy here. So we do have Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, and that's also quite a beautiful world card. I do love the depictions in the major arcana here. They're gorgeous. So overall, it's a really beautiful deck. I did also forget to mention with the specific meanings of this deck, they do designate the King and Queen of Cups as a fair individual. I wouldn't take it as the end all be all if you have them come up in a reading, but they do designate that. They also say King and Queen of Coins or Pentacles as a dark featured man or woman. So I will leave it at that, you guys. I don't think I have anything else to add. I will just shuffle it like once or twice so you guys can kind of see what I mean. Like, it's very thick. It is harder to shuffle. So if you're looking for a deck that's going to be really easy to just jump into, I wouldn't recommend this one if you're not very good at shuffling or you're kind of nervous about that. Because especially sometimes if I'm away from my readings for a bit and I come back to this one, it's hard to shuffle. I've been doing a lot of readings lately for my channel, so it's no problem. But when I came back to the channel, I was like, ooh, that's kind of hard to shuffle. Would I recommend it though? Absolutely. I wouldn't let that deter you. So yeah, we'll end it there, you guys. Gorgeous deck. If you guys have any questions about the deck, let me know. I will link it on Amazon, provide the Amazon link in the description as well if you guys want to order it, and I'll leave you there. So you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this overview. Until the next one, take care.